Towering over the city, the Soviet embassy in Havana was opened in the 1980s, the high point of Cuban-Soviet relations. After the USSR disintegrated, Cuban-Russian relations hit rock bottom before slowly reviving over the last 2 decades. But as this former Cuban diplomat points out, recently the relationship has become much stronger.
If you take the speeches and the political pronunciations of 10 years ago, I think Raúl Castro himself said, we have 3 strategic allies, China, Venezuela, and Vietnam. He didn't mention Russia. Yet, if you say that today, who are these Cuba's strategic allies? Russia will come in the first place.
The catalyst, the war in Ukraine. Russia is not only in need of allies, but hemmed in by Western sanctions, it needs trading partners and places to invest.
Both nations, Russia and Cuba, have unjust sanctions imposed on them that originate from the same enemy, the Yankee Empire.
Havana's position on the war in Ukraine has shifted over time. At first it said that NATO expansion formed the backdrop to the conflict, but it opposed the use of force, a reference to Russia's invasion.
Sanctions.
At the UN, Cuba has consistently abstained from condemning the invasion. While the US and its NATO allies have rallied around Ukraine, as the war has progressed, Cuba has thrown its lot in with Russia. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel this May even offered his country's unconditional support to Russia's clash with the West. Meanwhile, Russia is providing Cuba with unprecedented economic support. Trade between the two countries tripled last year and is up again this year, mostly Russian oil deliveries, which are helping to keep the lights on. Amid a flurry of trips by senior officials this year, Cuba has given Russian companies long-term land concessions and tax breaks.
Nothing and no one can stop the economic, commercial, financial and cooperative relationship between the governments of Russia and Cuba.
Russia has announced investments in Cuban hotels, liquor and the dilapidating sugar industry. After reneging on normalization, successive US administrations have lashed the island with sanctions over the last 6 years. With its economy in shreds, Cuba is looking for help wherever it can find it. A Russian warship docked in Havana last week, grist to the mill for the US political right that's trying to present Cuba as a national security threat. This ever closer relationship, forged by world events, makes any rapprochement with the US even trickier. Augustin, Al Jazeera, Havana.